Hi, Rita here with another episode of The Ramblings of a Redheaded Stepchild. So, lightweight, tons of reps, or heavyweight and low reps? That's the question. Now, this is just my opinion. I'm sure that somebody somewhere can come up with the science of how they both kind of read before, they both, can do the same thing and whatever, blah, blah. But, putting aside genetics too, okay? Just my opinion, but, coming from somebody who was a professional powerlifter for about 14 years and made it to the absolute toppest that you can get, and who also then turned around and got her IFBB Pro card in her second show and is, kind of holding on to some muscle pretty well there, being competitive and continue competing pro. I have to say that my strong opinion might bear some weight. So, here's what I say. I will always be an advocate for the heavy lifting when you want to put on muscle. Can you put on, and if you're talking about volume, and muscle is built by tearing down the muscle, right? And as you recover, it builds another layer over that muscle, and then that's how it continues to grow. So there's several ways that you can do that. But I will always be an advocate of the heavy lifting. And even if that means heavy lifting in the beginning and then winding down or whatever, but the heavy lifting, I truly, truly believe needs to be in there. And really, the greatest bodybuilders all had some sort of powerlifting background. And so why it's such a debate, I really am not sure. Although I am hearing more and more bodybuilders talking recently about incorporating heavy weights. So maybe it's coming around. But anyway, let's just say you take somebody, because, blah, blah, I got my pro card my second show. But it's not like I just started training and voila, there it was. I was still putting time in for 13 years before that. So just take a woman or anybody. Take somebody who started lifting for bodybuilding 14 years ago, okay, and put them next to a person who trained in powerlifting, and then a couple years, winding, kind of like adjusting the training style to more of a bodybuilderish type of methods, and look at the outcome, okay? That powerlifter, and it just happens over and over again, that powerlifter is bigger, that powerlifter is denser, that muscle is thicker. And so, the heavy lifting needs to be there. And I think that it's very, very important for building initial muscle. And I think that as you get, because, the bigger you get and the harder it becomes when you're not really putting on tons of muscle really fast anymore, then you can kind of start to back off a little bit. You don't, of course, heavy lifting is always going to continue to help, but then you've got a lot of other things playing, and, you got to watch out for injuries. You got to watch out for wear and tear that you've been putting on the body over the time to get to that point to begin with. I personally kind of use it in waves now, going from powerlifting to bodybuilding. And knowing what I kind of knew before and playing around with some stuff and looking back over the last couple years, I kind of believe that it's good in waves. So even for a bodybuilder, I start out with a lot of heavy lifting off season, and then as I'm approaching, like, say, prep or whatever, I keep some heavy lifting in, but I do start using a lot more like reppy stuff, burnout sets, supersets, higher rep type stuff. Now, part of that reason, though, is because you're not really eating to recover from the heavy lifting anymore. You know what I mean? You're not eating enough, not just heavy lifting, but you're not eating enough to be putting on muscle to begin with. So things, I believe, at that point, things need to change a little bit. Now, me personally, I'm under 5 weeks from my show. I'm tired, and I'm not eating like a little bit of food, but she's certainly hungry, you know. So now at that point, it's more about maintenance. Maintenance is extremely important, right? You're still having to do a lot of cardio type stuff to get the fat off. You don't want to lose the muscle that you've put on. And then recovery is becoming more important. So, so now I have backed off a lot more. I'm using bands. I'm using tempo type methods. I'm squeezing them out slow, holding, things like that. Of course, when I do personally still go heavy-ish, and it's probably maybe heavy for some people. I don't know how heavy for other people, but definitely not like my version of heavy, but certainly something that I can, let's say, 8 to 10 reps, right? And I'm keeping that in there, but it has definitely winded down. So in the grand debate of which one should you use, even as a powerlifter, I would say that you need to incorporate some of the higher rep stuff. Powerlifters, I think, have tended to veer, kind of like migrate towards what seems easiest and using powerlifting as an excuse for it. And that's just to go in, do like 3 to 6 reps of a few things and you're done, and it just doesn't work that way. So for health, muscle health, joint health reasons, especially, you should be keeping some high rep stuff in there. For the bodybuilders, get the heavy weights in. And you know what? I think that both sides. So I say that's easy for the powerlifter, right? So they avoid the reps. And I think for the bodybuilders, they're used to those reps and they don't really want to have to push into that, what it takes to move heavy weight sometimes. And so I think both sides really need to delve into the part that's uncomfortable, because that's where the real growth comes from, right? In the uncomfortable area. But yeah, so that's my take. Early on in your career, all heavy lifting, mostly heavy lifting, right? Say 90% heavy lifting. But one of the unique things about me, as I was coming up through powerlifting even, is that they used to tease me that I was being a bodybuilder all the time just because I'd go over 8 reps and stuff. So even when I was going heavy, I was trying to get more reps of the heavier weight. So early on in your career, more heavy lifting. Later on in your career, you can back off on the weights a little bit because that muscle is there and you don't need as much to work it. You still need to grow it, sure, but you don't need as much to work. You can certainly maintain it. Early on in like an off season, heavier weights, that's where you're going to want to build that thick new muscle, or you're building new muscle, so you want to thicken it up and get it dense. Prep starts, you're not eating enough to build so much anymore, so now you need to keep it heavy enough to maintain in shape, and build a little if you can. Build as much as you can with what food you've got. Make sure you're getting your rest, but it needs to start dwindling down and kind of getting more like burn work in, and getting towards the end. It's all about recovery and shaping that muscle and just getting the fat off. So lower the weight, don't get yourself hurt, and come in looking huge and strong. So I don't know, that's my opinion. I mean, what do I know? But I guess I know a little bit. But anyway, so talk to you later.